Facebook, and I'm just going to click go live on YouTube, and then we will be live. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another Crazy Gibberish. Today we are joined by the great Allen Hammack, TSR veteran, designer of adventures, writer of stuff, Alabama Crimson Tide fan, and fun guy to have around. Allen, welcome to the show, man, or welcome back to the show, I should say.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I appreciate the invitation. Thank you, sir.
Well, it's been a while, so I said, hey, let's call Allen up and see what he's doing. And I can see you've moved to Hobbiton. That's a good look.
Yeah, it's actually there's if I can get out of the way, you can see the top of my head. That was I actually was in New Zealand 10 years ago now.
Wow.
It was I would love to go back sometime. It was a great trip. A Lord of the Rings cruise. About a dozen or so like-minded people joined my wife and myself, and every stop was some side adventure to a filming location or to the WITA workshop studios to see armor and miniatures and special effects, and had lunch with Sir Richard Taylor, of WITA. And,
oh my gosh,
it was awesome.
That is wonderful. Now, I know that, like, in the mid 2000s, some urbex people found that is urban exploration people that go out and they do photo shoots in abandoned buildings and so on and etc. They found the Hobbiton location. Not that it was much of a secret, but at that time it was not used anymore. It was literally just like off in the corner of a field, and there were a few of the more permanent props like Bilbo's front door and so on were still in place. So I'm guessing from your photo that when you went there, they had fully restored it, and it was an actual attraction that you could visit and interact with.
Yeah, we had we had pretty good timing because we were there right after they finished the Hobbit shooting there for those films. So they had fully restored it and up restored it. But this place was a working sheep farm before, during, and after. And the guy who let them use the site before, you're right, it wasn't a secret, especially to the local, ring nerds and such. But when the film crew left, most of the things went with them. And so at that time, all they could do was say, yeah, you can come out to where where it was filmed, and you can see the hills, and, you can see with the side-by-side pictures, this is where the tree was and everything. But by the time when they wanted to do the sequels, they cut a deal with the farmer again. They built up the props, did it more permanently. And, the guy makes a tidy bit of money from operating Hobbiton tours there. And now there's actually a Green Dragon Inn that wasn't open when we were there that is open now for people. And I think that's owned by the movie company, or licensed by them, and not directly money to the farm guy. They were all compensated well. Tourism is huge in New Zealand. Of course, it will be after the dang virus gets eradicated and they let people in again. Yeah. So, but yes, it was a lot of fun, and everybody in New Zealand is so friendly. It's just great. So.
That's wonderful, man. That's great. A buddy of mine actually went on this is a couple of years ago, but it was his anniversary vacation, he and his wife. There is a bed and breakfast in Oregon that is all Lord of the Rings. Like, you stay in a hobbit hole, like your bedroom is basically like Bag End. But of course, this is insofar as you can get as close to Middle Earth on Earth as this. That there in New Zealand is the real deal. And I am as green as that front door with envy at you as having gotten to go there. That's wonderful.
It's a great trip, and I recommend it to anyone if you got the wherewithal to make it happen. So it was the trip of a lifetime for me, really. So
that's wonderful, man. That's fantastic.
There's a scene of a few pictures of me slinging a sword at Edoras and Rohan. Nice.
Nice. Well, bring those next time.
All right.
Bring those next time, and to see the mighty Allen Hammack with sword.
Yeah.
There was it's interesting how those film sets go sometimes. For decades, the Tatooine sets that Lucas built in Tunisia were like Bedouins traveling through would stay overnight. Just, hey, this is a convenient campsite. Here's these buildings made out of plaster and concrete. They've stood up to the weather, and we'll just sleep in here tonight. But the local government finally, I think in the early mid 2000s, got wise to it and said, you know what, we'll pay you guys to maintain these things. Apparently people in America really love the science fiction movie this had to do with. So I guess if one was so inclined to travel to Tunisia, you could visit Mos Eisley and the Owen Lars farmstead and so on and etc.
Well, let's say that the American movie set building is probably more structurally sound than a lot of building you got in that area, at the time, which is why it lasted. Now they went, hey, this is great. So the government is definitely in on the money collecting scheme there now too. They got wise to it. So.
Well, what happened was all of us nerds who were little kids when Star Wars came out, we grew up and we're hitting that age where we've got disposable income and we can travel the world.
Mm-hmm.
And, suddenly a bunch of 40-something man children start flooding into your little desert communities. You're like, yeah, sure, you can see it, but it'll be $20 American a piece. And, just start showering them with cash.
Right.
So,
if you're on a trip like that where you've spent thousands of dollars, you go, yeah, I'm not going to argue about $20 here. So
yeah, exactly. And it's not like there's too many other locations from Star Wars you can get to go see. But back to Lord of the Rings in New Zealand. I mean, again, they made Hobbiton a permanent installation, which has got to be a bit amusing to a sheep farmer. It's like.
And when our tour bus, our tour was organized by a couple of the people from the OneRing.net, which was a fan organization that I had followed. It was started back about the time the first Lord of the Rings movie started shooting, because some people there discovered, the locations, and they were actually referred to as ringer spies at the time. And they were so effective at getting pictures sneaked that Peter Jackson just finally said, okay, look, we're going to make it official. You guys are our conduit to the fans, and we'll tell you this stuff, So on our last trip, we drove into the studios that Jackson had in New Zealand. And it was a drive-by, of course. We didn't get a tour of the studios because The Hobbit was in production. The 3 movie, I just refer to it, all as one. But, and we drove by the gate and we saw this large green screen put up, about 3-story green screen, and some white buildings, and we were all guessing, snapping pictures and going, what's that going to be, and then the security guards chased us away because we weren't supposed to see even that.
Right.
It was the ruins of Isengard. I can tell you, I matched up my pictures with the movie later. So
Nice.
So anyway, yes, it was fun. Getting the forbidden pictures a little ahead of time. But we had actually signed a non-disclosure agreement before our tour of WIDA in case they happened to let slip something that we weren't supposed to see ahead of time. So
Sure.
We weren't supposed to publish our pictures until the movie came out from that and from Hobbiton. So
Now, I know that I've heard stories to, back in the 1980s, the idea of, spreading around a picture or rumors from, say, the production of Return of the Jedi or so forth. I mean, it's like, who are you going to reach?
Right.
A couple hundred fans, maybe. But Lucasfilm was, back then, were vastly more locked down. Like, I'm sure you've heard the whole story about shooting in the desert in California for Jedi. It was, and up in the mountains for the Endor scenes. It was Blue Harvest. It's a science fiction horror movie. It's called Blue Harvest. We're not shooting a Star Wars movie up here. Totally not. But then on the flip side, now you've got, like, for all we know, you could be sitting in New Zealand right now. I mean, that's the reach of the internet. And
if I just delayed my answers by a second or so, you'd believe it.
Yeah, just pause for a second. Maybe knock your camera resolution down to 480. But I have heard that, and you seem to confirm it, that Weta is they're a little more accommodating to fans. I don't know how true this story is, and you might have heard this, that a couple of American fans who were in New Zealand at the time of the filming of The Lord of the Rings, they were shooting actually like in a city park in New Zealand, and they were hanging around on the fringes taking pictures as much as they were allowed and that sort of thing. And so the story goes, just depending on which version of it you hear, either someone associated with the film or Peter Jackson himself basically said, came over, talked to them. They said, yeah, we came to New Zealand not specifically to see filming of The Lord of the Rings, but we found it was so close to where we were staying, and we just had to see it. And so the response from the film crew was, well, you came all the way from America and you're spending part of your vacation time here. Why don't we dress you up as orcs if you want, and you can stand in the background over here and wave swords? So that's what they got to do. I mean, that's just, that would be like the equivalent of Lucas grabbing a couple of hangers on and saying, we're going to put you guys in stormtrooper armor. And you can stand over there and look menacing. So
that would have been an awesome thing for any fan. I mean, I've done a bit of community theater and things, but I was an extra in one movie that got some wide circulation. I can say that I've co-starred with Tommy Lee Jones and Jimmy Buffett. And the movie was Cobb, about Ty Cobb, part of which was filmed in Birmingham. Ty Cobb. Rickwood Field is the oldest operating baseball field in America. So it was a good field for a vintage scene. So I was an extra. Me and the two cardboard cutouts that for every live person, there was a cardboard cutout that we had to move to various sections of the stands when they wanted to shoot different angles. So it is a very boring business being an extra.
Yeah, I had some friends out in California who were extras. The wife of the couple, her big claim to fame, as far as, unless she did other things she didn't mention, she's in an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And she gets to break line of sight which I guess is a rare thing as an extra, but
Yeah.
um, she has this platinum blonde hair, beautiful hair. Becca has. So they put her in her dark wig because they didn't want her to like draw the eye away and make people think, "Ooh, that's an important person." They explained it
Hmm.
to her. They're like, "There's this whole psychology. It's like we don't want redheads and we don't want blondes in the front of the shot." So they
Right.
had her tuck her hair up and they put her in a dark wig and she's holding her textbooks up high and just comes across the shot like that as the main characters are walking down the school hallway. It's kind of neat to hear about that experience with her.
What a great experience it
Yeah,
is. It, you
yeah,
know, it's all of us. You know, what, give up show business? Yeah. So we,
yeah. The closest I've been to being on TV was when some kid rode through our neighborhood shooting out car windows with a BB gun. The local news came down and talked to, because apparently it started like miles away and it ended up with a high speed police chase. And so, yeah, me bitching on camera to a local news channel about that. That's
you know,
it.
that's normally not what the news reports in the high speed shooting drive by chases. You know, so
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, so you were in Cobb as an extra, and
yeah.
I think that's super cool. I do have a question for you. This is from Cerulean Knight over on YouTube. Says, do you have a favorite Lord of the Rings book? And I think we could probably expand that to include like if Silmarillion or Lost Tales or um, The Hobbit or anything like that. So let fly.
Wow. I consider, the Lord of the Rings trilogy to be basically one book published in 3 volumes. I mean, that's a saga, and it's wonderful. I wouldn't break anything apart from that. The Silmarillion, although epic, I wouldn't put in my favorites. I enjoyed it, but it was a little. Honestly, it was a little like reading the Old Testament. There were the verses were in this happened in the past, and then this happened, and then this happened, and there was a verse repetition that was similar in poetry and cadence, to the King James version of the Old Testament, and I think deliberately. As far as fun, I liked Farmer Giles and Ham as one of Tolkien's little short books on that. So I would go with that as the most enjoyable of them. Any little adventures that had Tom Bombadil in it were fun. And I saw somebody asked what you thought was the least best character that was undeveloped in the movie versions. I'm going to go with Gonbury Gon of the Woses, the wild men between. He actually helped the Rohirrim army get to Minas Tirith in time. And it's a great nod to kind of a Aboriginal type culture of the area, and you've got to understand. Movies, you've got a time limit, although it didn't seem like it sometimes with those things. But and there are parts that just will not convey visually that are very good in a book, and that was a lot of discussion about sitting around a campfire and talking was the major scene of it, but the help was invaluable.
Yeah. And I personally, I think for everything that they padded the Two Towers out with Aragorn getting run off a cliff and showing
Yeah.
the long refugee train from Rohan um,
Helm's Deep.
to Helm's Deep. Thank you. Um, for all that they felt compelled to put in, they could have not and given us both Tom Bombadil, which, I think a lot of people say, "Oh, but Tom is so goofy." Yeah, but you cut out Tom Bombadil, and then you lose the Barrow Wights, which is arguably one of the more gripping, adventure-y, dare I say, Dungeons and Dragons-y kind of scenes in Lord of the Rings.
And it's where they get the cool swords.
It's where they get the cool swords, and that was something like I knew they were going to cut Tom Bombadil. I was pretty sure they were going to cut the Barrow Wights.
Yeah.
But literally, could you not, for all the stuff they added, could they not have had Aragorn hand out the daggers and say, "These were made in the north for my kin to fight the Witch King"?
Right.
Could they not have given us a little Chekhov's
gun? I know that would have been, maybe in the extra length add-on version, that we'll never see. But
yeah,
and I understand. I bet there was days of talk about Tom Bombadil. I bet there was some scripting done, and I bet that even now, the people argue, well, if Tom Bombadil was, what the heck was he? What kind of, they say he's older than the Ents and unaffected by the ring, and why didn't he join, and there's a lot of, I think that would have confused the narrative early on in the movie for those who are not diehard fans who would just want to argue about it like we would. So,
right. And I mean, Faramir, that you bring up another good point, it's like, why was Faramir changed so much? I mean, in the book, Faramir has Frodo in his hands and when Frodo shows him the ring, he says, "Yeah, if I saw that lying on the road, knowing what I know about it now, I wouldn't even pick it up." And the movies have spent, by the time we meet Faramir in the films, almost 5 hours establishing that the ring it's plutonium. It's gonna get you no matter what. No matter, it caused Boromir's death, the fight at the council in Rivendell, and so on and etc. So to have a character just suddenly pop up and say, "Oh, I wouldn't touch that," big deal, whatever. That for moviegoers, Joe Popcorn would have been like, "Huh? That's a
right." And the it was given a little bit of short shrift, but Faramir, as one of the 3 or 4 characters that was offered the ring and refused it, is a measure of his quality, to steal a line from another part of the book. And it was, it should have established him as one of the great ones. The movie, I like the actor. I think that the writing kind of wussified him a little bit,
Yeah, it was not a great portrayal of Faramir.
I think they played they kept overplaying the second Banana de Boromir card just a little too much. He was a mighty lord, so.
Yeah. It's after watching the movies, it's almost refreshing to go back and read the books and be like, okay, no, this is Faramir.
A real hero.
Yes. So would you call him a paladin or a ranger? I got to ask the D&D questions, Alan. I'm sorry.
Oh, probably multi-class. I mean, he's primarily a ranger, and as Aragorn was. Oh, and I wouldn't have minded seeing Aragorn's, company of the North join him as well. The other Rangers, the people who were invisible but had been defending Hobbiton and Bree from, the wargs and the goblins and things without really anybody being aware of it.
Yeah.
The Border Patrol.
The Border Patrol.
Yeah. Well, the Wardens of the North. So.
That's it. We're gonna build a wall and we're gonna make Angmar pay for it. I had to. It's a joke, folks.
I love it.
Don't at me. Don't at me. But yeah, it's funny. I know that because reasons, Gary had to be very glib about Lord of the Ring influences. But when you look at the AD&D Ranger is Aragorn. He is.
As much as, it was based on him. It is.
Yeah. I mean, truly, the magic systems are very divergent. Gary did his own thing, cribbing the spell memorization and so on from Jack Vance. But yeah, it's kids. Rangers are Aragorn.
if a ranger isn't based on Aragorn, why does he have clerical spells? Because
exactly,
he's supposed to have healing hands.
The hands of the king are a healer's hands. Yes, exactly. So yeah, it's pretty obvious.
Right, and yeah, you're right. They had to be circumspect, as I probably brought up before. You're looking at, as far as I know, the one and only champion of the Battle of Five Armies tournament, because right after I won it, they got a cease and desist letter from Tolkien or Zance or whoever it was that was running the rights back then.
Right. Tolkien Enterprises was this weird three-headed troll of, and that sounds like I'm slagging Christopher Tolkien, but I'm not. He had to protect what belonged to his dad. But a lot of people don't know this. Saul Zaentz, Fantasy Records, the record company that was the label that Creedence Clearwater Revival were on. And you want to talk about no love lost between a couple of people. CCR and Fantasy Record or Saul Zaentz, not big fans of each other, but he had, and I can't remember in what quantity, purchased film rights to Lord of the Rings way back. I think even before Tolkien passed away, because he sold the film rights to help with a tax burden.
Right.
And so, yeah, Tolkien Enterprises was a mixture of the Tolkien estate headed by Christopher Tolkien, Saul Zaentz, and then probably a legal firm mixed in there. And even as a fan of D&D, I knew that they could not tread on those hairy little toes without serious repercussions.
And that's the key. That's why they're halflings, not hobbits, and
right. Tree ants, not ants.
And it's etc. It was the current situation goes to show that you do have to legally protect your trademarks and copyrights. If you don't, someone else can step in under and hijack them from you. So,
without doing a deep dive on someone very close to this conversation referring to it as that shit in Lake Geneva.
Right. That shit storm, I believe.
That shit storm was yes, that was what was quoted to me by yourself. That shit storm in Lake Geneva. I have seen in social media, and look, I get it. There's people who they may only know Dungeons and Dragons from 5th edition or from Stranger Things. They knew it existed, but they don't geek out like I do, and they certainly weren't there like you were to understand this. I've referred to this, just for clarity's sake, not as denigration to anybody, but this is TSR 3.0.
Well, I didn't want to call them 3.0 because I actually liked the 3rd edition of AD&D.
Oh. Well, company-wise, TSR 3.0.
Right. I've seen, and I actually referred to original TSR as OTSR, in going with the
I like
OD&D,
that. I like that a lot, OTSR.
And then TSR 2.0, the Jason Elliott getting the abandoned trademark, which is different from jacking it, in my opinion, and operating with Top Secret New World Order, which I was a part of. So, just to follow the model others said, I was an employee of OTSR. I worked for hire for TSR 2.0 for the, Top Secret New World Order product, and I have no connection with new TSR, NU TSR, as I've seen it, or Wonder TSR, because one of the legal entities there is Wonderfield, and anyway, I have no connection with them. The fact that they turned the place that I used to work into the museum has, an interest. I would go see the museum, at some point if I was up in town, because I used to work there.
Yeah.
So that would be fun. But that's the extent of my, attachment with them. That's all.
Sure.
I think that they're making some horrible marketing choices too.
Yeah, I think.
But
yeah, no,
as you said, there are enough casts and things that do dive deep into that without us exploring further. So
yeah, I'm gonna leave the hot controversy to other channels. Is the one thing that I've established from the get-go is I'm not interested in internet blood sports. I may not have 100,000 subs and be able to monetize every time I scratch my butt on camera, but I also don't have people howling for my blood and doxing me and things like that. So I'll take life in the quiet fields and let others go off and fight their own private wars about that.
There you go. I've always, gaming should be about gaming, and if gaming isn't fun, you're doing it wrong. So
yeah, exactly. And that's I don't know if you ever even heard of this term, or maybe it was a thing back even when you were TSR, which I do want to ask you about your TSR days, some things that folks had asked me, but edition wars, it's like I don't bother arguing with people anymore about which edition of D&D is best. I know what it is. It's first edition AD&D followed by like a 1/10 of a percentage point by original D&D. And by God, if you started playing, if you were, born into this world with a 3rd edition set of books in your hands, more power to you. I hope you enjoy the heck out of it. Don't tear down my hobby. I'm not going to tear down your hobby because it's all our hobby.
And, if I am at a convention and somebody I like or think is fun is running a game, it doesn't matter what version it is, I'm going to get in the game and have fun, So I can run and will play OD&D, Advanced D&D First Edition, 3.5 and 5.0.
Yeah.
I will play and have played and have run in all of those.
A couple of years ago, man, people know me as the grumpy old grognard who only loves first edition AD&D and will, like, I think a lot of people think I'm like this close to putting on a sandwich board that's ringing a bell, walking up and down the street. Oh, we play AD&D. But I played in a game a couple of years ago. A friend invited me on Discord to come in game with him, and they were playing this very high level Pathfinder game. And they're like, "What do you want to run?" And I said, "You got room for a bard?" Sure. I said, "Okay, I'm running a dimensionally hopping, time traveling Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin." And they're like, "Beautiful, perfect, go for it." And that's what I did. And for, I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks, I had more fun as a player, because I got to DM all the time, Alan. I don't know if you suffer from that. I have to DM all the time. I have a 7-year-old game that I run online with my friends, and I told them, I said, "Look, your characters, the party is like an average 7.5 level now." I said, "One of these days, we're going to start and complete the GDQ series. And when I say the words, 'and with that, Lolth is dead,' one of you people are going to have to put the pointy wizard's hat on, because I am done DMing at that point."
There you go. And we kind of, in my original group, it was expected that everybody who played would run, and most of us did. And because if you can play 2 to 3 times the number of times that you have to run, I think you've got a fairly healthy environment. Because honestly, it might take those 3 weeks off to work up to the next adventure that you're going to run. Because guys, if you're not a GM, it's hard work. There's a lot of prep,
Yep.
So it's not just game time.
Yep. You got a shout out from Rich Allen over on Facebook. He says hello. But yeah, DMing is it's quite a stretch. And when I look back and like Gary running games for folks in Wisconsin, just all you guys, like, it's like, 15, 20 players at the table. I mean, it blows people's minds when I tell them I got 11 people in my game on Monday nights. I can't imagine DMing for week after week, night after night, that many people. I've done it at a convention, and it was crazy, and I was exhausted at the end of it. But I just can't imagine DMing that many people.
Yeah, it's a stretch. It's a stress, and honestly, as a player, as great as it might be, it can be a long time between turns. Where you have to do something. The more players you have, and that's really the key factor. It's going to be more fun with 4 to 7 or 8 players than it is with larger groups, because it's going to get back to your turn faster. You're going to be more engaged. You're not going to have time to sit out and look at your phone, between turns and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's a level.
I will say that Roll20, when I play, and our groups normally have about 12 people in them. The turn order thing comes up in Roll20, and if I don't see my name in the top 3, yes, I've got time to look at something else for a minute. No, and when my name rolls up on the board, I go, okay, I've got to pay attention. I don't want to be the guy that when my turn comes up, say, okay, what's happening? So. Right. I want to have my plan of action ready when the DM calls on me.
Yeah. I get one of my players. He owns his own bed and breakfast in addition to other responsibilities, and he plays the bard in the group. And sometimes I'll get a private message from him, and he'll say to me, "Listen, I got to go take care of something for a guest, so I am playing my lute and if something makes it into my rank of the party, I'll attack it with my sword. And I'm like, I completely understand. You
Right.
go deal with your stuff, man. Because he's
And
out on the
decide,
West Coast. I start at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard, but it's just after supper out there. So
yeah, if the bard has gotten his inflict player characters, buffs up, he's done most of his job. If he's actually hitting something with a sword, somebody else has failed. So.
yeah. We have a question from Cerulean Knight. Says to Al, is turn order the most important thing to keep down in game design?
No, I mean it can be as simple. We use a stack of index cards for turn order in our games, and put in a couple or three for what we call monster time. It's that if you're playing a system that allows delays and reinsertions, it makes it easier to take the card out and stick it further in the stack when they become available. And I've seen it argued, and I'm giving serious consideration to the idea of a boss monster with multiple attacks not having initiative, and the reason is because if that means that player one, whoever engages boss monster first, could suffer the brunt of 7 Hydra head attacks or something like that. If you have the Hydra able to engage everyone as they come within range, you as a GM could fairly split them out. An intelligent monster might want to concentrate, but it gives you the option to not have to deal massive damage to the one player whose turn happened to put him as the only one within range when the monster's turn is up. If you see what I'm getting at, it gives you a little more flexibility in that. And I think that's probably not a bad option, if you have a boss that has multiple attacks. So.
Well, I would consider that for multiple, for a relatively dumb monster like a Hydra, and Hydra are dumb. I think they're listed as semi-intelligent. So
right, you're not going to do that with a dragon. But,
no, you're not going to. Dragons, demon princes. No, they're going to bide their time, and they're going to get their due on the D6, whether it's win or lose. They're not.
Let me just tell you what my call as a game master with most demons is: summon other demons.
Yep, they have.
Why not?
They have those gate abilities listed for a reason. And I go back to playing Q1. Look at Loth's gate ability. She's not gonna let the characters put the pointy ends of their weapons in her.
Right.
If
she's not going to stand in melee with everybody.
No. I mean, again, to go back to the stupid topic of edition warring, people talking about how much better third edition was or whatever, and Loth was a pushover. I'm like, she was slain by our party in X number of rounds, and the paladin just hacked her to pieces. And I'm thinking to myself, why was she in melee?
Right.
Why she literally could summon a small army of demons, and they could summon some, and they could summon some. It turns into this geometric filling of that chamber with demons and with demons, not devils.
And Loth had such a movement advantage in her own realm that she should have not been cornered. She should be able to get away and then summon the army or gate at the end. Get away. She could get away.
Yeah. I think this, and I apologize to Paul Kidd, the author, for this, but if you ever watch this, Mr. Kidd, he wrote a novelization of Q1, but it was well into the 90s. And the party killed Loth by dissolving her with holy water, which on its face is not a bad solution, except it was like a portable hole or a bag of holding full of holy water. That's just lazy writing. That's just lazy writing. But we're talking about old modules and old stuff like that. You mentioned your workplace, the Dungeon Hobby Shop, the TSR offices, rather.
Right.
What? Give us a little snapshot. What was it like working at TSR back then? I mean, as a freelancer, I've written a couple, 2 or 3 things, even for Gary also. But I mean, in the time of the future here now, it's like being a freelancer is okay. I power on my PC and I hammer out 25,000 words and email a manuscript. And during this process, I'm emailing and direct messaging and FaceTiming and everything else with the people that I'm working with. Not an option back in the 1970s and 80s. So give us a little window on that.
Okay, the TSR office was a converted house. I mean, that's the first thing that struck you. The Dungeon Hobby Shop was the first thing that you walked into by the door, which made sense since it was, also some retail traffic would come in. Also on the first floor, one of the rooms was the accounting office of Kevin Bloom and his wife, and then upstairs was what I would call the creative area. There was a room that was the office of Tim Kask and Joe Orlowski, who published the Dragon and Little Wars magazines, respectively. And the next office over was Gary Gygax's, and the next office was a room that was Mike Carr's for a while, and then after a little while they had bought the hotel downtown, and then I actually got my own office in there for a brief time. So my office was actually next to Gary's office for a brief time there, because when I started, I was sharing a desk and a typewriter with Tim Jones, who was another editor there. And we were in the art room with Dave Sutherland and sometimes Dave Trampier. So it was crowded, it was wild, it was creative, but unless you were Gary, you didn't have an office door that closed. He could get privacy and no one else could. But so when I was editing World of Greyhawk for him, it was very convenient for me to, if I had a question on a segment, go in with a sheaf of papers and say, "Hey Gary, blah blah blah. What did you mean here?" And he would either make a correction or say, yeah, that needs work. You figure it out, or something like that. So it was really nice to be able to walk next door to Gary and ask him questions about World of Greyhawk or what we were doing. But yes, the big change is that, you had real desk telephones and nothing really interrupting you most of the time. We used typewriters with carbon paper because Xeroxing was fairly expensive prospect in the day. You would have to go to a special store or library to pay to use their photocopier, and it could be expensive. So you fiddled with carbon paper, and if you made a typo, you could white out the first page, but then you'd have to go through and erase or white out all of the carbon copies that you made, and it's a lot of fun. Somebody said Jim Ward, I think, misspoke when he said, we didn't have red pens. Oh, we had red pens. We had editors were almost required to carry a red pen around, because never knew into whose office you might be walking where they said, hey, we need to change something on this, and hold up a manuscript, and you'd look at it and I'd go, okay. And, Mike Carr and I and Tim Jones knew the appropriate editor's marks, which were things that typesetters could read and interpret correctly to set up the typeset galleys. Again, not like today where your printer does all that. There are special ways to mark if a word was to be deleted, if a word was to be replaced, if a phrase was to be dropped out and replaced, or if somebody's previous correction was actually wrong and it needed to be the way that it was originally. There's a Latin word for that called stet, S-T-E-T, let it stand. So again, typesetting was an expensive proposition. Once you got a typeset galley made up, they tended to let little errors go because it was too expensive to replace it. If there was a critical error that we noticed, then we could actually fix some of the other little things as well, because that page is going to be reset.
Mm-hmm. So a lot more elbow work back then. Like today, I think the newest version of Microsoft Office I use is like 2007, but like the online versions, they're getting that creepy type ahead Google AI infection in them, so they'll try and complete your sentence for you.
Right, and that's a bane for writers. On the other hand, if you see it too much and you go, that's what I was going to say, then I go, I need to change up my frequency and my use of that phrase if it's projecting that. So.
I resent it in Gmail. Like if it's like, so I think we should go, and then I get that ghosted ahead and do that. I'm like, forward with that idea, period, enter, because I was not going to say that,
To the blackjack table.
to the blackjack table. Yeah, I think we should go get drunk. But, so it was for the younger crowd. Yeah, it was a fairly different time. I mean, I don't know, man. Again, I was lucky enough in working with Gary and later on freelancing for other people, in that I live in a time of telework. I mean, even before Andromeda Strain, 20 years before Andromeda Strain, when I started working with Gary, and then, which it's funny because working with Gary led me to do completely non-RPG related projects for one of the other writers that had been on Gary's projects later in his life. But I mean, I guess if you had suggested back then, the way I want to work, Gary, is from my house, and if I need to know something, I'll just call you or send you a postcard with a message. You'd probably get laughed out of the office for suggesting.
Well, that technique is how the first year of Top Secret was developed. It was phone calls and letters back and forth with Merle for me, and every time there was a correction, it had to be typed out and sent to me, and I had to make my changes or additions or cuts and send it back to him. And that's, that was teleworking in the day. But no, my being from Alabama, I just loved coming up and embracing the Wisconsin winters and living up there. God. The snow, the horror.
I have told this story before, but the first time I ever went to Wisconsin, I think it was back in 2004, 2005. Well, no, I'm sorry. The second time I went to Wisconsin, because in 2004 I went to Milwaukee, the one and only Milwaukee Game Fest, and met Gary face to face the first time there. And that was during summer, and it's strange to look at weather maps and see that, like, some days summer in southern Wisconsin is hotter than it is here in central Florida.
Yeah.
But so it was nice and toasty warm when I went up there back in 2004. But my wife and I went to Lake Geneva Gaming Convention, which the Trolls did for a number of years before Gary passed. And the first night we got to Lake Geneva, we left a 90s Florida. It was in the spring, summer, and got to a 48-degree Lake Geneva. And I was like, no way at all. Even later in the weekend, when she and I went to, we were not doing con stuff. We were just out getting a bite to eat or something in Lake Geneva. And it's beautiful country up there, by the way, for those of you who've never been in the springtime.
The beautiful 2 weeks of springtime.
The beautiful 2 weeks of spring.
2 weeks of fall. Yes.
I remember because we had no, it was a later visit, but it was still there like 3 or 4 years we were going up every summer to Lake Geneva Gaming Convention, and it was 87, 88, but 0% relative humidity, this nice cool breeze blowing in off the prairies, and I was like smelling the cut hay, and sun was just going down, and I was like, damn, this is really nice. And then on the breeze, Mother Nature whispered into my ear, if you move here, I will kill you.
Yes, you were...
all this is going to be under ice and snow in 9 weeks, Bill. Don't even think about it.
The first year that I moved up in 1978, they had, up until that time, the winter of 1978 was the most snowfall they had ever recorded.
Yeah, the 78 winter that hit the Midwest all the way out to the East Coast to Buffalo was infamous.
And before I left back for Alabama in the end of 1983, the beginning of 1984, Wisconsin had a month where it didn't get above zero, Bill, above zero.
Yeah.
So, I was ready to come back to, a nice thawed landscape. So
yeah, and it's interesting as you mentioned that. I was a kid growing up in Alabama at that time, and I thought like the winter of '78 there in Gadsden, which is in northeast Alabama, was the first time I had seen, to memory, significant amount of snow. And I think back on the winters in Alabama as being like bitter cold, because I've lived here in Florida since 1980. So, moving to Florida and people are like, oh, it's 40 degrees. What? And I'm like,
yeah.
You're talking to a northeast Alabama boy. I know what cold winters are. Yeah, no.
Well, we all might know the coldest weather that we've experienced, but that doesn't mean we would want to go back there again.
No.
I every 2 or 3 years, I try to make a Green Bay Packers game in Green Bay. Mm-hmm. The latest we go is mid-October, so.
Yeah. Gary Con 2018. I'll tell you something funny. Talking, every bartender, waitress, store clerk, security guy, everybody I spoke to in Lake Geneva, because you talk to people and the subject of the weather comes up. We're living examples of it right now. I promise, folks, we'll talk about RPG stuff in just a minute. But everybody I talked to had vacation property in Florida or knew somebody in Florida. I'm not making that up. All the people I talked to had somebody down here in Florida.
It took them 6 months to thaw out from the other 6 months. So yeah.
Yeah. So it was basically, snow on the ground Gary Con, which is like very early March, had been on the ground since like October. Just oh
Right.
man.
That's the dirty snow by then. Yeah. So
Yeah, it was not the Courier and Ives calendar photo snow. It was the Jesus Christ, when is this stuff gonna melt snow?
right.
um, oh, I wanted to mention this. Speaking of Alabama and Dungeons and Dragons, one of my new viewers, Bo Ganora, hi Bo, says, "Roll Tide." Proof positive that you meet D&D players everywhere and you meet Alabama fans everywhere. Bo, I met on an Alabama Crimson Tide football fan forum, and just he realized that I was a huge nerd, and so he subscribed to the channel. So there's
Very good.
There's our crossover.
All right.
So you mentioned to me, and if this is something you want to kind of keep under your wizard's hat for a little bit, I understand. Last night I kind of asked about future plans. You'd said you were looking to retire, and then you kind of had something gestational. Can you give us a little hint?
Okay, I've been approached by a couple of publishers that would be recognizable to do some work for them, but I'm retiring from my mundane job, my real life job, in hopefully by the end of the year. And a few years ago, I had a battle with cancer that involved both surgery and radiation, and frankly, it sapped a lot of my energy. And by the time I get home from the mundane job, there's not a lot of creativity time left for me as far as writing stuff. And I hope to get back to that and get to some of these long delayed projects at the end of the year. And some of them could be rather lengthy. So, it's that could be exciting. So we will see. We will see.
Okay. Tantalizing glimpses. I'm looking forward to it.
The one of the people that I help is Paul Stormberg, who runs the Legends of Role Playing tournaments and room at GaryCon.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful, wonderful thing that he replays a lot of the original games like Chainmail and the miniatures Siege of Bodenberg, and he had created these wonderful large 40 millimeter Boot Hill town, and for me and Stephen Winter to run Boot Hill there. But he also runs the Legends of Role Playing tournament, which is an old style D&D tournament. It's so old style that he actually prints out the module in Courier to give it that typewriter, look to us, which is frustrating to us as DMs.
Last night I was doing a deep dive on Tomb of Horrors, and of course the huge Art and Arcana box set comes with a facsimile of Gary's Tomb of Horrors manuscript, but it's done from photocopies of his manuscript. The thing's impossible to read with my eyes. I'm like, room one, my arms are not nearly long enough to read that. So curse you, Paul.
But anyway, I'm going to be writing one of his future Legends tournaments there. So that's the one thing I will slip out. And if the technical aspect can be worked out, the Bards of Greyhawk have asked me to do a cameo for one of their music videos.
Yes, that's I had heard about that.
Rich and Jeremy.
Yeah, Rich Lopez. He's over on Facebook.
Hoping to get that the visuals of that worked out over the weekend, and so naturally it'll be in the Ghost Tower of Inverness video that they're doing. So
excellent.
So yes, stage, movies, and now music videos. Is there nothing that I can't conquer? So.
Exactly. You're like the American Christopher Lee, man. You've just got it all to Al Hammack.
And Christopher Lee, famously, who reread Lord of the Rings every year. So
Yes. The guy walking around on the set correcting people's pronunciations, you know, schooled Ian McKellen in how to correctly pronounce the black speech when he when he pronounces the curse from the inside of the ring to get everybody to shut up and pay attention to the DM in the
if Christopher Lee is talking using his Christopher Lee voice, I think everybody would do well to shut up and listen. So,
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, he
is missed.
Yeah, what an absolute legend. I mean,
yeah.
Spy that James Bond was based on. Tolkien scholar, met the man, knew the man, actor of stage and screen, fronted vocals for a heavy metal band. I mean,
right?
What? That's.
I watched that every year. He would do a new one, and that was fun. That was fun.
Yeah, but that's pretty darn amazing. And I remember. I thought it was kind of touching when Peter Cushing's wife died. Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing were very close, and when Cushing's wife died, he just said, like, there's no point anymore, and I'm just gonna become a homebody. I'm just gonna retire, live off my royalty checks from Hammer, and just hang it up. And Christopher Lee said, hey, is that what she would have wanted? And really kind of brought him out of a bad place. It's a very cool story of friendship. I like it quite a bit. Just furthering the coolness. And again, we have the American Christopher Lee sitting right here across from us. So yeah, I know that Paul does publish the Legends of Wargaming tournament modules, so I cannot wait to add another Allen Hammack great to my bookshelf. And you guys out there in YouTube land should absolutely, and Facebook land, should absolutely go out and grab some of your stuff. Now, Ghost Tower of Inverness, and I was telling my audience that I was a little disappointed to find out that it did not have to do with Inverness, Florida. But I think Inverness is a town name where there's like one in every state of the Union.
And of course, multiple places in Scotland.
Yes.
It just means like a place on the river, sort of thing. But I did finally get to travel to Ireland and Scotland, and in a cold and very windy day, there's a picture of me holding the Ghost Tower of Inverness in front of Inverness Castle in Inverness, Scotland. So.
Oh, okay. So that's just add that to the pile of things to share the next time you're on the live stream, because I want to see that one too. But I asked you this, and Alan, I am so sorry. I have completely forgotten the answer. Were you influenced by Moorcock's The Vanishing Tower when you wrote the Ghost Tower of Inverness?
No.
Okay.
I had read his Elric stuff, at least some of it, but I did not read The Vanishing Tower, so
okay,
was not influenced by that.
Okay. I was like, I gotta ask Al, because I don't remember. And you might say, well, why didn't I just go back and watch? I hate the sound of my own voice. People are like, oh, you should just do pre-recorded videos. No, then I have to listen to myself talk. I'll only go back and watch these if somebody has a specific question for me about something I said that I don't remember. But I like the sound of my voice. It just sounds weird in my ears. I got this studio cans because the USB ones were like wrecking the audio when I do live streams with people, and I can hear myself talk now, and it's like nails on a blackboard. So,
Oh no, I believe that's already been trademarked by Eric Tinker. It's, in the current kerfluffle, someone called his voice, nails on a chalkboard.
Well, I said blackboard, therefore
you're
my
right.
product
You're
is
right.
different.
That's an entirely different use of everything.
Nails on a blackboard, TM. TM. So you also, again, for people who maybe didn't catch the first live stream we did, A3, Assault on the Area of the Slave Lords.
Right.
Which is one of the coolest D&D modules ever, because I have used Suderham for so many walled towns.
Wow.
That is such a handy thing to have.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
TSR, just the Keep on the Borderlands and Assault on the Area of the Slave Lords, the only two, to my knowledge, cities in classic D&D modules.
And that's one of the reasons that I put it in. We knew the way the adventure was plotted out with the other authors, we knew there had to be a base of operations. But I said, I don't think we've come across a city in a tournament setting before, and I thought that it would be cool to try that. And there were some successes and some failures in some ways that I would, of course, rewrite it and change some things nowadays, but that's the way things are. So I always tried to do something a little unexpected and not the usual, especially in tournaments, but in all the modules. So.
Yeah.
But thank you for those kind words. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're quite welcome. And to my listeners, viewers, what have you, if you need a town module, like fully populated, I don't just mean a map. There are 1,000,001 apps out there, people who've created random town generators. A fully populated, working, functioning town. Go to Drive-Thru or DM's Guild or whatever, grab yourself a copy of A3. And it's a fantastic adventure module on top of that. But yeah, Suderham is a great map to use if you just need a good walled town to put down on the table, because your well runneth dry. By the way, that name Suderham, was that yours? Did you come up with that?
Yeah. I like playing with names and having double meanings. In two different, ham means home in kind of traditional, I don't want to say Old English, but the traditional English, which is why there are so many hams in England, Buckingham and Nottingham and things like that. Suder means south in not English, in a kind of Dutch Afrikaans kind of thing. So it means south home. It was a salute to Alabama and Birmingham when I was up there in the frozen north writing.
Nice.
And also a play on my name, Hammack, which that root has kind of the same origins. So.
Now, one of my viewers here, Awig, says Suderham was named after Dave Sutherland. Did you also?
That was another play on it. It was not entirely after him, but it was, like I say, if I could work in 2 or 3, puns or meanings to a name, I did it. So
that's nice. One of the things, and people have asked me about, why I love AD&D and original D&D so much, is you guys tweaked each other's tales so many times with the puns, or like you say, Suderham, South Home, your tribute to Alabama. There's so much of that stuff that, to my mind, got filtered out of 3rd edition onward. Just things you don't see, that kind of playing around with each other. It's almost like, okay, this part of the song, it's just a simple drum fill, but then you guys would take it and do a little shave and a haircut or something like that in it.
Well,
If I may use a music analogy.
The more corporate culture a company gets, the less room you have for shenanigans like that. Again, in the Slave Lord series, one of the characters, the NPCs, is one of the pre-generated tournament characters is called LJS.
LJS, letter
LJS, Lawrence J. Schick.
Right.
We were always doing things like that, and that's the sort of thing that might not get by in a Wizards of the Coast type setting.
Yeah.
Can you imagine somebody making fun of one of the board of directors, something like that, or even having a name reference to one of them? Probably, if a shop is run by a group of brothers named Hasbro, oh no, we can't use that in there. No.
Yeah. You'd have memos flying around from attorneys and human resources and sensitivity readers and.
It would be a re-education week, for somebody.
Was it the Maoists call it a struggle session? You sit in your open plan cubicle and have accusations shouted at you until you confessed. And I don't know if you caught. I did a couple of streams. They were some months ago, but back in the winter when things blew up with Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weiss and Wizards of the Coast over the last Dragonlance trilogy. I had Ty Beard, attorney out of Texas and game designer, came on, and we kind of hashed that out a little bit. And yeah, I cannot imagine even Lorraine Williams was not dumb enough to try and kill the golden goose when it came to Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weiss. But here's the management at Wizards of the Coast,
and sometimes this stems from new people stepping in upper management positions and not appreciating the history or knowing what they're dealing with or why they would. I'm not going to defend it. Tracy and Margaret are my friends, and I wish them all the best always. And I think they were perfectly correct in their assessment and their handling of everything. So,
well, Ty's denouement, when we got done with his, and it was a long live stream, and I'm gonna, if you don't want to, for those of you who want to see the first Ty Beard interview I did, I will upload it to YouTube soon. If you don't want to dig down through Facebook to try and find it, it's 3 hours long. But his denouement was, I promise you, Bill, right now, somebody at Wizards of the Coast, some attorney from Wizards of the Coast, is getting their ass chewed by management at Hasbro for pulling this. And they are negotiating right now how to get this back on track.
Right.
And he was right, because months later, the Hickmans dismissed their suit. Wizards of the Coast said, we're moving forward. He was absolutely right. It was an own goal, as the English say, regarding Wizards of the Coast. They shot themselves in the foot, and now they're struggling to fix it.
Yeah.
I have another question. Chris says, the A series has different creators but are linked adventures. How do you end up with A3? Also, Wimple Frump is one of the best names in RPGs.
Thank you. How did I end up? I'm not going to say randomly, but we had talked it over, and Lawrence said he had a really good idea for a finale, but that it required someone to write a situation that the players couldn't possibly get out of no matter what they did. And Lawrence and Zeb didn't want to do that, or they thought they'd stick it on me because because when that comes up at the tournament, everybody's going to say, well, that's not fair. We did this and we did that and that should have worked. And I have to say, yeah, the plot device mandated that it not work. So I had to come up with this. So it was kind of I embraced the challenge of having to write a scenario around where whatever they did didn't work, because the next guy needed that to happen for the start of A4. So, which is also on its own one of the coolest either finishes or standalones. Now, if you run A4 as a standalone, your players are going to scream at you at the beginning.
Yes. I think your players are going to scream to you at the beginning anyway when they wake up.
Well, and they're going to scream at you at the end of A3, but there is that. So I just I will just give an evil chuckle and say, yeah, I embraced the challenge. So
what was your afterword in A3? It should be quite impossible for the players to defeat the slave lords, but if they do, that's quite a group of adventurers you've got there.
Yep. Wanted to, remind the DM that they shouldn't be able to do it, but if they do, good job, guys.
Yeah. I'm reminded there's the end of the very first level of Doom, the original 1993 shooter by id Software. After you beat the two boss monsters, which isn't terribly difficult, just shoot rockets at them, hit them with the BFG, and they die. You step onto a teleporter, and it throws you into a room where the floor, the room is pitch black, the floor hurts you, and it's full of enough monsters that with the damaging floor and the number of monsters, you will die. And upon your death, you get a text on the screen saying, basically mocking you for your expectations of I beat the monsters and therefore the game is over, and telling you to get ready to play the next couple of chapters of the game. And it always made me think, because I've spoken to John Romero, and John, I mean, if you read Masters of Doom, which is a good book, everybody should. Doom came out of first edition AD&D. The concept of Doom was fueled by these entire weekend-long sessions of playing AD&D, and John Romero has said that Tomb of Horrors is his favorite AD&D module, and it's no wonder if you've ever played his Doom levels; they're friggin' nightmarishly hard. But I can't help but wonder if the end of chapter 1, Knee Deep in the Dead, wasn't based on the no-win scenario at the end of A3, because it's almost exactly the same thing. It's like you step through the teleporter, you immediately start taking damage, the monsters start knocking you down, and then it's fade to black, and you get this text saying, "Oh, you didn't think this was the end, did you? You didn't think you're going to get some great reward." And then you go on and play the rest, and of course you play the game through, and it sets up the opening for Doom 2 and so on. But it's
very good. I did not play Doom and certainly didn't get to the end of it, but I admire that. I applaud the author there.
Yes, like I said, and he pinged me on Facebook because I wanted to try and interview him for the live stream. Our time zones don't match up, and he's busy making new computer games and such, but I had just finished reading Masters of Doom, and I said, hey, I'm a D&D geek first and foremost, but I love playing Doom, and just messaged back and forth for a minute, and he said, "Oh yeah, I love Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Tomb of Horrors is my favorite." Maybe I'll go back and ask him. Maybe I'll say, "Hey, did you?"
Yeah.
Maybe because the ending of A3, for those of you who have never played the A series, go get it, run it for your group. But the end of A3, if you want to play A4, your party can't win.
Right.
If your party's of appropriate level, they probably can't win anyway, so it's not like you're just like, well, I'm going to do this, and you're just pushing the note button as the DM. The slavers are really that good. They're really that much more powerful. Now, if you run a 10th level D&D party through there, yeah, it's your group's going to win and they're going to die. But that's not the level stated out for the But Ty Beard just popped over on the Facebook chat and says hello. If you do you care for tabletop wargaming per se above role playing or?
Well, I mean, that's how I started, was tabletop wargaming and then miniatures. Those were all the predecessors to D&D, and I'm old enough to have been playing that before D&D. So, still enjoy it. I'll go to a convention finally got to go to an in-person convention, North Texas. And the last time that I went, not this time, I got to play in an American Revolutionary miniatures game, historical miniatures battle. Tons of fun. I enjoy that.
Well, you should like this. I'm going to put the link. I will send you this link, but for our listeners and viewers, as I said, Ty, in addition to being a lawyer, is a games designer and wrote a war game called... whoops, I just linked the Zoom chat, and I didn't mean to do that. That was not the... Let me just delete that. Ty has written a war game called A Fistful of Toes. Not toes like on the end of your feet. The tube-launched, optically tracked, wire-controlled missile that... let me see... So you might check that out. And he was at North Texas also. So there you go. Anyone interested? So I did my best. I tried to pry out some info about what you might be releasing in the future. But right now, if someone wants to go out and buy some good Allen Hammack games, so you've got the new Top Secret you worked on, yes?
And Top Secret New World Order, yes.
Top Secret New World Order,
for which I get the minuscule royalty if you buy it.
Well, I'm going to link that because let's see, Top Secret. Oh, here's an interesting question, because this is a bit topical. Did you your manuscripts, your module manuscripts, and so on that went to TSR for conversion into published project? Did you get to keep any of your manuscripts, or did you get any of your manuscripts back?
There were you never really got anything back, but there were times there were two. Occasionally there would be things like we would write a tournament and run it, and we would have our copy of what we had printed out so we could run it for the convention. And it could keep those. I did one product. I did the Day of Al-Akbar after I had left TSR, and so I had my own copy of my word processor, printout there, as well as the one that I had sent in. So I had that, and but in general, no, we don't have many of the original pieces. there were a few of the things that we worked on that didn't get final, they didn't get taken in for the final, whatever, or it got changed significantly enough that we were able to keep it. Now, a couple of those I've been lucky enough to, auction off. But not many of the big name stuff left.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, if you ever stumble across, say, your original MS for Ghost Tower or something like that in a box in the garage, you're gonna dance an Irish jig. That's that's
right.
a prize that many a collector would sell their own right arm to get.
Well, I do appreciate that. And I'm getting reminded that I'm going to have to wrap it up and get back to the job they're allegedly paying me for. So,
I understand. I do want to mention one other thing about your job, because somebody, Bo, who I was telling you about earlier, Bo Ganora says, it turns out Al works for one of my customers. Next time I'm in Birmingham, we'll have to get lunch. Well, I'm going to leave that to you and Al. I'm not going to try and broker a get together with America's Christopher Lee here. So,
yes, you can get in touch with my people, and we'll check the schedule.
Okay. We do have one more question. This is going to be the last question, guys. This is Chris Moneymaker says, how concerned were you and other game authors with continuity back in the early days? And that's Chris's question. I'm not exactly sure what he means by continuity. So,
well, very concerned within the realm of the D&D rules and published in that. That's one of the reasons we argued finally successfully that the TSR design staff needed to have its own library of everything that we were putting out, so that, because before it got to the point where the designers and editors would be the ones answering questions from consumers about this rule was this in such and such, and in the Dragon it said this, and in Sage Advice it said this. What is the new ruling, or what's the consistent ruling, and or there would be the inevitable slips. But yes, we did try very hard, but we were human. It was before the age of computers. We couldn't cross-check things except with our own library skills and memories. So some things would slip through, but we did try. When generally things that happened in a module were their own separate little branch, and I didn't worry about keeping up with what Zeb Cook would be doing in his module unless we were working on part of a connected series like the Slave Lords. In that case, we did, obviously try to connect continuity together. But if what I'm writing about, in my section of Inverness was in Woolly Bay and in the world of Greyhawk, I didn't care what somebody else was writing, in a neighboring duchy in their module in that. So I was not concerned with that.
Sure. And I think if Gary had said, look, there's a world-spanning event, get your typewriters ready, then
Right.
You guys would have been like, okay, well, that's going to affect Inverness and that duchy
Right.
over there. But
Sure.
yeah, but clearly, I mean, you guys did a yeoman's job at keeping everything, keeping everything continuity-wise great. So,
I mean, one of the hardest things to do when we were working on the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide was to prepare the index and of all of the terms, where you could find them, and cross-referencing that to the existing Player's Handbook and Monster Manual. and that was a massive undertaking. The index and glossary were so.
Well, you bring that up, and it's probably a good thing you bring that up now, because that's the next time you're on. We're gonna have a throwdown. I want to talk to you about the Dungeon Master's Guide production, World of Greyhawk. We're gonna get super geeky. So you'll come back, yes, I hope.
Yes, Bill.
Great.
Enjoyed it.
Great. It's always a lot of fun to have you on. Thank you so much, Allen, for popping by today. And if you're free tonight, Jim Ward's going to be on the live stream. So if you want
Right.
to heckle Jim from the Facebook comments, or find me on YouTube and throw Rotten Tomatoes from over there, that's perfectly okay with me.
Jim is my good friend, and I will wish him best wishes, and maybe send in a ringer question, but not under my name. So.
I'll keep my eyes open for that. That ought to be fun.
All right, that sounds good.
Thank you so much, Allen. We will see you next time, guys. Check out Top Secret New World Order. Keep your ears to the ground, because this man is about to break loose with some classic Dungeons and Dragons.
And upcoming conventions, I'll be at PlayOnCon in Birmingham, and then GameholeCon in Madison, Wisconsin in October.
Excellent.
And looking forward to those and seeing everybody there.
All right, Allen, you have an absolutely stellar day. Thanks again.
Good Signing off from Hobbiton.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that was Allen Hammack. It's always a lot of fun to have Allen on. He has got such great stories that he likes to tell. Rev up your engines to ask him questions the next time I have him on about the Dungeon Master's Guide production, about World of Greyhawk, because I certainly have a lot I want to ask him. Later today, at 7 p.m. Eastern, Jim Ward will be in the house, and we are going to have a lot of fun. Jim is a great guest to have on. We're going to find out about what's going on with all of his projects, and keep your eyes for ringer questions from the gallery, because that might be Allen Hammack. So thanks everybody for stopping by. It was a lot of fun. Good live stream. I will see you all in just a few hours, actually. Oh, and special thank you to Ty Beard for stopping by the YouTube comments. Ty, I want to get you back on the show, man. Got to geek out. Got to talk some more D&D, some more tabletop games. Leave the legal stuff off on the side table, and we'll just have a great old gaming time. So, PlayOnCon is next weekend. I wish I could be there. Rich Denver, 7 p.m. Eastern tonight. So if you're Central, that's 6. West and Mountain is 4. I don't know. 3 hours minus the further you go west in the U.S. So thank you, everyone. Great questions today. And if you come back and catch us a little bit later, Kat, thanks for stopping by. It was very sweet to see you. You guys have a fantastic afternoon, and I hope to see you all later this evening. Peace out, everyone.